Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. Plymouth Argyle faced off against Leeds United for the third time in as many weeks and were undone by 2 goals either side of half-time against a side brimming with Premier League quality as Jorginho Ruter and Willie Gnonto smashed home to take the points back to the Yorkshire. Yeah, it's in Yorkshire, isn't it? A lot of prep done there. Joining me tonight is Dan Allard. How's things? Back again?
Indeed. Becoming a regular again, shockingly.
Yeah. I did tell you that I'd not written an intro, so that'll do. Ben, how's things?
Yeah, all right, mate. Thanks. A little bit more downbeat than I have been after recent results, but that's more to do with, I think, the rest of the league than Argyle. So I'm sure we'll get onto that.
I'm sure we'll get on to whether we should give Ian Foster time later on. And rejoining us after a few pods absences, John Alsop, how's things?
Good. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I too can get a Lionel Richie tribute for my dad's office ceiling, which is also very nice. I don't know how he does this. My back hurts already from leaning over. So yeah, fair play. So I'm gonna sit down now.
Well, at least the gag's done and out the way. An incredible chant I've had in my head since I saw the tweet, to be fair. If we could get "Oh What a Feeling" going at Home Park, I'd be very happy. John, whilst you're unmuted, why don't you run us through Saturday's 2-0 loss?
Yeah, obviously a frustrating result. Don't think anyone would deny that. But, again, as you said in your very well prepared introduction, definitely not cribbed from any other sources, came up against a team just stacked with quality who are incredibly ruthless. And we have, by and large, I think, defended very well, as we have done in the other games against Leeds under Ian Foster in the Cup. Obviously, sort of slightly undone in extra time in the replay. But in the 90 minutes in those games, defended against them very well, while sort of riding our luck a little bit, which was also the case yesterday as they hit the woodwork with a deflected effort from Ruter, I think, firstly, and then that James free kick late on. But other than that, limited them to just 2 shots. Well, those were not shots on target, I guess, but limited them to 2 shots on target through 2, I think, pretty questionable pieces of defending. And because of the quality of attacking player that they have punished us absolutely ruthlessly. I felt that we had definitely some positives to take from the game from an Argyle perspective. Didn't create too many chances, but I thought created some nice play. Despite the some naysaying among friends of ours and on social media, I actually felt that we broke through the lines pretty well. A couple of Leeds friends of mine were quite impressed with how we played against them. Seemed to think that we were, we gave them a more challenging time than some of the other Championship clubs they've come up against recently. Swansea. Sorry, bit of a cough. But yes, I felt we sort of spread the ball quite nicely from side to side. So Divine pinged some very nice passes. Sorinola a couple as well, I think. I think if we just had a bit more composure in terms of the final delivery and the final ball, we could have, created some proper chances. Obviously, we did have seemingly one chance, which was that ball that I think Miller thundered across the box, and Waine, throwing himself at it, couldn't quite make contact. Hard to see from our end of the ground opposite that one how close that was, but judging by the ooh that went around the ground when it was shown on the screen, which we also couldn't see because we were behind it, it seemed like it probably was pretty close. And then that was obviously a very important time in the game. I'm sure we'll come on to it. I actually thought we then moved into what was clearly our game plan, which was to be very much in the game, let Waine kind of tire out their defenders a bit, stretch them a bit, and then bring on Ryan Hardy for a bit more penetration in behind. But just as that game plan was perhaps kind of clicking into its next phase, we allow them to score with a shot from Ruter that is a good, powerful finish after a good, powerful run. But I think you have to question why he's allowed so much space. And also, I think you have to question, unfortunately, the goalkeeping from Conor Hazard is kind of straight at him, sort of zips through him more than anything else. Again, not an absolute howler because of the pace at which the ball was travelling, but I think Cooper would probably have saved that one for my money. So, yeah, kind of a sucker punch, really. And then again, coming after the goal in the first half, which also came at a really bad time for us, just as we were looking to get a foothold in the game. So disappointing that it went that way. I don't think we gave the very best account of ourselves that we could have done, but I think also sometimes you just have to give credit to the opposition. They are clearly a very, very good side, oozing with talent. I mean, Reter, as I think I said at least once in one of the pods after we played them previously this season, is a £40 million player. 40 times our transfer record for someone who's playing in the Championship is not bad. And I think Ashley Phillips really actually handled him very well by and large. So it's frustrating, but I think green shoots definitely still there. And yeah, like I said, sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say we're playing a team who are very much on form at the moment, and just not our day for that combination of reasons.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. I see a lot of discourse on social media asking what we can do to sort of overcome these obstacles, or what we could have done better, or where the mistakes were. And sometimes you just come up against a team that's better than you. And take my earbud out because I'm echoing in my own head. You come up against a team that's better than you, and you try and play your game plan. It's just you've not got the quality to see it over the line. And it would maybe one game out of 10 or one game out of 15. We would have got the result, but you have to accept that Leeds are a better team with better players, and they can have an off day and still probably get the result. We weren't good enough. There were individual mistakes at times. Some of them didn't cost us, and some of them did. And I think that's probably the biggest regret, or the biggest sort of sticking point from that we should be taking from it, rather than maybe lambasting anyone in particular. But I think the fact that Foster does seem to have us so much better organised. We do play well through the third. Sometimes that, when you're in possession of the ball, sometimes you're not going to get the pass right. If you're asking players to be brave, take people on, roll people, you are going to lose possession sometimes. But the point of Foster's setup is that if people are in position, you have the cover for when that happens. But it's when people are potentially out of position. Like, for example, the first goal, I think Miller is gambling, thinking there's a chance to sort of get the break on rather than stepping back in where he ought to be and covering Nonto. That then gives Gibson the problem trying to get back. Gibson loses the ball in the air. He's not able to get underneath it and just clear it away. Hazard, I thought live being in the Devonport that Hazard could have gone out to the ball, but looking at the highlights from the side, there's no chance, I don't think, for him, no time for him to get out and sort of challenge for that or to take it. So it was just a really unfortunate series, or like three things there that just didn't work. If Miller had been where he ought to have been, I think he worries Nonto and gives Gibson more time to come back and cover. If it had dropped slightly further forward, Hazard would have got it. If it had dropped slightly further back, Gibson would have been able to get back under it, I think, and do a better job of challenging for it. I think he kind of lost it in flight and wasn't able to get to it in time. And that was just one of those perfect storm of bad circumstances. But it's that sort of situation where if Miller had pinned in the right place, potentially that goal isn't conceded. And similarly, like John said, for the second goal, I don't really blame Miller for giving the ball away where he did. There's lots of opportunities for others to intervene in that passage of play. Miller did a lot of good work down that side, and he's going to lose the ball sometimes if he's trying to skin people. I think I haven't looked at the stats, but I would suggest to the eye, he looked like he won more of those duels, got past his man more often than he didn't, and got praised for that. So I wouldn't necessarily pick him out in the second goal, but there are certainly moments where people could do a little bit better, and I do think the keeper's culpable. I know it's hard and it's low, and he's making himself big, and therefore there's a gap between his legs, and he's got big long legs. But at the same time, you're a goalkeeper. You're supposed to be able to cover, your outline, your shadow. So for the two goals, I think there were individual errors that cost us, but the game plan was working well, both offensively and defensively. Apart from the first 10-15 minutes when we gave Leeds far too much respect, and I don't think we barely touched the ball. As soon as they scored, we started to come back into it without really threatening much. Having said that, there was Miller took a wild shot when he could have slipped Waine in. It would have been a difficult ball to sort of wait properly, but he could have put Waine in behind the back line, and exactly the sort of opportunity Waine liked, and that was about 15-20 minutes in. There was Whittaker almost won the ball back in the first half. I thought he did. The ref blew it for a foul. It didn't look at all like a foul to me. The ref was quite inconsistent with contact and what he was allowing. Sometimes to Argyle's benefit, but seemingly mostly to Leeds' benefit during the game. For example, with the free kick that Dan James nearly scored the third with, that was a weird amount of contact to give a free kick for on the edge of the box when Waine had literally been manhandled, two arms around him, trying to break away in the first half. It was I wasn't over enthused about the officials' performance. I think that was maybe a source of.
It was also in the box. Very
Well,
the Leeds free kick was very much in. Also, I agree with you that I don't think it was a foul, but if it was given, it should have been a penalty. It was miles inside the area, so it was just a very strange decision all around.
Well, I think he gave it for the pull on the outside because there's a good tackle in the box. He makes a tackle in the box, and I think he then pulls it back because the advantage he hadn't been able to carry on and gain advantage. But the pull back outside the box, I thought was incredibly, like you say, it was weak. So yeah, and then the 3 minutes of added time after the 6 against Coventry, that absolutely enraged me. But we're not on ref watch just yet. So yeah, I thought there's a lot of meltdown, sort of looking for the answers. Sometimes you just got to say there isn't an answer. You're up against a team that could execute its game plan to 7 out of 10 and likely beat you unless you execute yours to 10 out of 10. I thought the movement between the lines was good, and I thought the link up between sort of like the 20th minute and the 70th, 80th minute was really good. I thought there was a lot of good defending. Some of it was last ditch, but that is, last ditch defending is part of playing against a really good team. And I thought most of it was executed really well. I thought there was a lot to be happy with. And I think sometimes people try and pick bones out of things and look for answers to problems that don't really exist. It's one you have to write off and say, how many games have Leeds lost this season? I can't imagine it's more than sort of 6 or 7 at the most.
They haven't lost this calendar year, and in fact, the only team they've failed to beat is us in the FA Cup. So they literally won every single league at the turn of the year. Yeah,
I think after playing us, this stat is something like 15 scored, 1 conceded in the past 8 games, league games. That is, that's an incredible record, and we look like bothering them. If Wayne's foot was an inch longer, that stud that got scraped would have put the ball in the net. So we look like decent. We looked decent for a goal, I thought, over the whole 90 minutes. And so the fact that we did that against a team that has only conceded in one of the last 8 league games is pretty impressive. And we just have to sort of say, not remonstrate about what we could have done to get the result, just accept that we needed to have been perfect and we weren't.
Nice. Moving on to some full-time
Sorry to drop
thoughts.
you in that while you were mid-burp, mate. I could have timed that better, couldn't I?
No, I can't actually burp. I've only burped like 3 times in my life. Genuinely, I can't burp.
Your 4th ever burp was caught on audio for our podcast listeners. People say we don't produce the best Argyle fan content, and I have to say, to those people, I would say, tune in to hear Aaron's 4th ever burp.
I mean, it wasn't a burp, it was a cough. And also, I hope that it wasn't caught on audio. And thirdly, it will be edited out. So don't tune in just for that.
Right. If you're a Bristol Rovers fan, though, we could say, up the gas.
We could. Yeah. Anyway, full-time thoughts. I'm just going to read this out. I haven't picked them out specifically. Paul Burke says, it didn't seem like the head coach was interested in getting anything from the game. We probably wouldn't have gotten away with it anyway. But with 20 minutes to go and only 1 goal down, we didn't have any subs warming up. 2 minutes later, we're 2-0 down and it's game over. Dane Bunny says Hazard was Leeds' best player. Gossie says, didn't think we could have done more than that. Giving away the soft first goal didn't help. They are light years ahead with this squad, worth eye-watering amounts of money with parachute payments to help them out. We move. Ken Adams says, giving away 3 goals away at this level is suicide. Graham King says, Leeds United are a very good team. Thought we deserved more given our second half performance. Second goal finished us off, but lots of positives. Hemmerden Gill says, result won't define our season. We didn't disgrace ourselves. Just a shame. Both goals we conceded were preventable. Backed Hazard all season, but today he really tested me with his lack of dominance and poor distribution. I'm sure we'll get onto that soon. Let's finish on a couple here. Keith Jenkins, once again, game decided by key bits of decision-making and quality at both ends of the pitch. Always a free hit today. Just needed to get through this tough run of games intact. And we're playing well enough to suggest we should secure safety. And then we're going to finish on James Black, who said, having now worked out Argyle's tactics, I'm confident to wait for the second half in every game. First half an hour, we sit back and let the opposition come at us. No problem. We can defend whilst they tire themselves out and get frustrated. Second half, now they're confident enough to beat them. The old Homer Simpson boxing technique, if you will. Is that how you would sum up life under Foster? And if so, how does it compare to Schumacher Ball, Foz-Ball versus Shuey Ball?
Dan, remember, before you're too harsh, he does deserve more time. Foster
He does
deserves
deserve more time.
More time.
Yes,
So I think it's just really important to sort of clarify. Sam clarified to us yesterday. Foster deserves more time before rush to judgment, like the judgment I'm sure you're about to offer on Ian Foster.
Yes, indeed. It's still quite early days. And I think that the results, and if we take the league results of, I think it is now 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats, isn't it? In his 6 league games, which, doing the kind of very basic cigarette packet maths, would see us comfortably stay up over the course of the season. And that's the objective. And, so to come in, have all the kind of turmoil of players leaving, signing new players, integrating them into the squad, various people being unavailable. It is encouraging, to say the very least, that we've got 8 points from 6 games, I think. Performances wise, again, very noticeable how we have kind of progressed, and his tactical style is starting to be implemented, even though it is still early days. That first Huddersfield game was a lot kind of hoof and chase, play for second balls, keep it tight at the back, nothing too expansive, which was very different to how we played under Schumacher this season. Very kind of aggressive, committing bodies forward, counter pressing and potentially being caught on the counter, but that's how we turn the ball over in good areas. So, it's risk and reward, as I've said before. And we're now starting to see that kind of thing come in with Foster. Obviously, he plays 3 at the back, whereas Schumacher kind of flitted between 3 at the back and 4 at the back this season. So it's, more kind of, how we're going to set up each week. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of encouraging signs. The way we were brave on the ball, as Ben said, and played through their press yesterday against a very talented group of players, it shouldn't be underestimated, I don't think, how difficult that is to do. And it's so important as well for us because, we're not really the type to kind of mix styles. We don't have like a target man in the team to go long to. Obviously, we got Hardy can kind of chase in behind with balls over the top, but really, we can't just lump it up to a target man and play second ball from there. We need to try and play through the thirds, keep it on the deck, play out from Hazard's feet. So when that doesn't come off, it will put us under a lot of pressure. But as has been said, we're doing really well to be brave on the ball and make those little kind of triangles and playing out and creating chances from there. Yesterday, Leeds just kept us quiet. I think you have to credit their 2 centre-backs, Rodon and Ampadu, were extremely good at keeping our attacking players quiet. We couldn't get through to them. As a result, didn't really test Meslier at all, which is frustrating over 90 minutes. But it's just one of those things. You don't get a free pass playing Leeds, Southampton or Leicester. I'll just kind of make that clear that I don't think just because we're playing them, they all get a free pass to kind of be, immune from any criticism. But at the same time, you have to be considerate of who we're playing. Every other team we've played this season, other than that horrible Bristol City game where we played a bunch of reserves, let's be honest, we have given a right good game against. We've been in the game. Yeah, of course we've lost some of them, but I think I'm right in saying the only ones that we've lost by more than 1 goal outside of Leeds, just Leeds and Leicester are, Bristol City 4-1, and then 3 Sunderland, which was 2 goals, Swansea, which was 2 goals, and Millwall, which was 2 goals. I might be missing one out there, but that kind of shows that we have been right in the game against every other team in this division, and we can kind of match them. Obviously we don't have their resources, we don't have their quality of player, but through smart tactical setup and putting a really good squad together that is, pulling their weight and maximising as much as possible, I think we're doing a really, really good job. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration after yesterday's game. People want to see us, push on to the next level, see if we can kind of keep nicely clear of that drop zone and maybe push on towards the playoffs. But you just have to remember, once again, where we are. 21st this season will be brilliant. And until we kind of build the model further in terms of, making profits on players and external income, that type of stuff, 21st will continue to be a very good season for us at this level. Unfortunately, it's not what people like to hear, especially the older fans who, when we were a kind of bigger fish at this level, but it's the way it is at the minute. So for the time being, just a kind of bit of perspective, frustrating to lose at home, never like it, but yeah, it is what it is.
Ben, I would have come to you on that one, but obviously for a more statistical view. But I know that we're working away in the background for another deep dive stats pod to compare the two, which will be live in a few weeks, hopefully. Just how, last on Leeds themselves specifically, just how delighted are you to see the back of Leeds for a few months at least? I don't think they've really shown us what they're capable at this level. Every game they threatened to blow us away, bar the extra time in the FA Cup. Not really managed to do it, despite the 2 wins and 2 draws, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that the difference between Leeds now and the start of the season is they could comfortably beat teams all season, but were struggling to find that second, third gear when they needed it early season. Whereas now, all of a sudden, they're able to hit that stride when they need to. And I think against us, there is the potential that if we'd got the equaliser, then they might well have really pulled their socks up and gone hammer and tongs. I think that Farke's finally got. They had a lot of turmoil early season, didn't they? There's a lot of Sinistera was really through the toys out there. Pram Nonto himself, I think it took a while for him to be reintegrated after sort of trying to do similar. There was a lot of relegation clauses in contracts about players being able to go out on loan and stuff. So as much as we would laugh at that sort of turmoil and love to have the resources they do, I think just for knowing who was playing and kind of unity in the dressing room and stuff, they had a bit of upheaval, but now they really look like the train is gathering speed, and if they don't finish in the top 2, it will take some. Southampton, yes, they broke their streak, but they're looking incredible. I think those two. The fight for that second spot. I mean, Leicester are going to have to, ironically, keep up a decent pace to keep them both from chasing them down. I don't think anyone will overtake Leicester, but yeah, the Leeds are just. I would rather have played Sheffield United yesterday, I think, than Leeds, and I think that says a lot about Leeds' situation in this league, and that might be a bit disrespectful to Sheffield United, because they're playing in They deserve to be in the Premier League potentially for their exploits, but I just
fact check false. Sheffield United do not deserve to be in the Premier League last season, in my opinion.
Well, there you go.
Probably the poorest promoted side that I can remember in my time following that level. Sorry.
No, but I'd like to think that sort of backs up my opinion that I'd rather have played Sheffield United than Leeds yesterday. They just Leeds they're not a team that we can measure ourselves against. It's a shame really that they didn't sort of blow us away, and we could have said, wow, look at the players we got to watch at Home Park and some of the brilliant play. But in some ways it's good to manage your fitness, manage your resources and play that way to sort of to eke yourselves out over the season. I think that's what they've done quite cleverly. I think Farke's got them all on board and playing well. So yeah, I mean, the idea that under Foster we've suddenly become a bit more boring seems to be doing the rounds. And to that, I'd suggest that the biggest factor is not the manager, but losing Finn Azaz. Under Schumacher, Finn Azaz was always the alternative when Morgan Whittaker was marked out of the game or having a slow game. Finn Azaz would pop up with a bit of magic. He was also the Swiss Army knife in midfield who'd bring other players into play if he wasn't creating the magic himself. And I think what he's doing at Borough already is evidence of how good a player he is and what we miss. Also evidenced by what Schumacher's not achieving at Stoke, with arguably a pretty decent squad of players there at his disposal. I know it's not as simple as that, but I do think that if Azaz was in the squad, we'd be playing a lot more attractive football, and that raises the question: well, what can Foster do to get things out of the rest of the squad? I think that's what he's trying to do. I think that's what the other players are trying to do, trying to offer alternatives, trying to support Morgan Whittaker. You know, we've had Bundu out injured, who I think has the potential to be a great addition, to add flair and options going forward. But, you know, our options are limited, as evidenced by the fact that Ben Waine was starting yesterday to give Ryan Hardy a rest. I think probably all of us looked at that lineup and thought, is he throwing this game, or is there a game plan? The fact is that Waine is the next man up front, and Ryan Hardy needed a rest. Maybe maybe Foster was hoping Hardy would be fit for this game, and it just didn't work out that way. You know, as he said, the science sort of said he needs a rest, or his hammy might go again. So that, you know, they have their monitors, don't they, during games. So I think the sports science sort of suggested that might come at a bad time, but Hardy just needed to have that rest, and he has the squad available to him that he has. So, yeah, I'm glad to see the back of Leeds. Yes, we're not quite as vibrant going forward, but I'd exchange that vibrancy for good organisation and the ability to stay in games against top teams rather than get battered 4-0, 5-0, as, for example, Schumacher has the last 2 times he's played Leicester, including once with us. So, you know, the proof of that pudding, I suppose, will be when Leicester come to visit us later in the season. But I think it's an exchange that needs to be made. And as I said on the last pod, Swansea came and did that job on us. Millwall came the game after and did that job on us, or vice versa, rather. That's what we need to be able to do to stay in this division. We need to be able to play against teams when we're not producing the goods going forward, hold them off, and then take our opportunities when they come. So, yeah, I think that we're glad to see the back of Leeds, but we have to play them twice in the season. The likelihood we was going to lose them both anyway. The league, the cup games were good fun. And now we're going to get into a run of games where it will matter. It'll be games against teams in and around us and down the bottom. So, like Dan says, they're not free hits. We tried our game plan; it didn't come off. Other teams around us and in the relegation zone have won. Yes, that's worrying to a degree, but you know, fixtures come in swathes of good batches and bad batches, don't they? And we're going to have a good batch pretty soon, I think, to try and gain some points from. And all of a sudden, fans might be sitting a little bit more comfortably. I don't think there's too much to worry about the fact that we've been full of leads recently.
It's going to surprise people to hear that I actually normally do a little bit of preparation for these pods. Doesn't always seem that way. Tonight I've basically done none. So I'm going to just jump straight into loads of social questions. I'm going to flip the order around. I'm going to come back to you, Dan, because there's a question for John after this. But Hemrod and Gills, and you can make this a quick one. They've asked, not directed at the current setup, but have you ever pre-game less expected a win? And then I'm gonna change their second question up a little bit. That says, are parachute payments ruining this league?
Blimey. Well, have I gone into a game ever less expecting a win? No. But sorry, yes, I have. The one that springs to mind is the cup ties at Liverpool and Chelsea. If we're going to exclude them and say league game, well, yeah, maybe Leicester away this season, but there's not many, and it is, and kind of leading on to their second point, is the disparity of financial clout at this level because of parachute payments that make it so bonkers. You know, it's kind of more, you know, that as that kind of filters down to kind of League One, League Two conference, it's obviously the gap is less wide, but you know, when we are breaking our transfer record and paying £1 million for 2 players each, and then coming up against teams that have players that cost 20 times that, it does feel frustrating. But are they kind of ruining football, ruining this league? I don't know. It's obviously it's very, the Premier League is very marketable, and the Championship is quite marketable. So investors see money in that. It's frustrating, but Leeds isn't our battle. You know, they're probably going to go up this season. Even if they don't, they'll be their expectations will be a lot loftier than ours next season if we stay up. So they're not really our battle. Obviously, our aim is to develop to a point where we can be a sustainable kind of championship team that can have a bit more clout than those other these clubs that, even like disregarding Leeds, kind of the clubs that are around us in mid-table that spend silly money on wages and transfer fees and stuff, and again, we're doing so well to compete with them, but because at the minute we're at a financial disadvantage. And that's not to say, like some people are saying, why doesn't Hallett get his checkbook out and stuff and nonsense like that? Of course, that's not the case. We're doing the best we can at the minute. So it's difficult to stomach sometimes when you go into a league game and feel like the cards are stacked that much against you. But I think, like I say, it is what it is with Leeds, Southampton, and Leicester. Whereas for the rest, whilst we are still at a financial disadvantage against most of those, we've shown that we can box clever and give them a good game 9 times out of 10.
Can I just jump in on that one quickly? Sorry.
Yeah, go on then. Crack on. Why not?
I think there's something different going on here slightly. Parachute payments are an issue, but last season what's happened is that 3 just generally very well-resourced Premier League clubs have come down. And these are not clubs that are like doped up on recent parachute payments. I think in each case, Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, it's been, a very long time since any of those clubs were relegated out of the Premier League until last season. If I can remember that rightly, probably would have been Leicester sort of a decade or so ago, maybe, probably a bit longer than that. So, and I think actually that was actually quite a positive development, not for those clubs, of course, but in the sense that it wasn't the kind of same turgid yo-yo club, 3 up, 3 down, your Norwiches, Fulhams, West Broms, Burnley, Sheffield United. Obviously, Burnley and Sheffield United did go up following that model, and now look like they're going to come straight back down. So I think the parachute payment thing is a huge issue and is making the Championship generally less competitive, among other factors. But I actually think that having Leeds, Leicester, and Southampton here is in some ways a refreshing break from that. Just as refreshing that Luton have gone up into the Premier League and kind of broken that yo-yo-opoly, if you want to call it that. And I think we should all find that quite refreshing. And notwithstanding that, I personally think the vast disparities in wealth between football clubs are kind of disgusting anyway, regardless of recent relegation or promotion history. And so I certainly can understand what Dan's saying about it being hard to stomach that you can go into a game, let alone in the same league as a club, and be up against such a competitive disadvantage financially. But these are the games also that we should be wanting. Like, this is the point of getting back to the Championship, or one of them, as far as I can remember, is that you get to go to Leicester, you get to go to Leeds, you get to go to Southampton, you get to go to these big, famous Premier League clubs. And I really enjoyed yesterday from that point of view. Like if you'd offered me Argyle playing Leeds in 4 years' time, when 4 years ago this month I was sat at Valley Parade, watching us lose 2-1 in 9 men with 9 men in League Two. Actually, that's maybe not the best example because Valley Parade is actually a cracking away day. But if you'd offered any of us back in those League Two games, 4 years from now, you're going to be competing with Leeds at home park, Southampton, Leicester at home park in the same league. I don't think there's really anyone who'd be under illusions that we'd be fighting on a level playing field with those clubs. But I think everyone would have said, yeah, that's great. These are the days that we wanted to be here for. That's certainly the case for me, and I loved yesterday. Obviously the result was disappointing, but I think amid all the negativity, it can get a bit lost that the point of us being at this level is that we do get these big games, and just because of the reality of the way it is financially, we are probably going to lose them 9 times out of 10, and that's okay. And I think it's not a cause for everyone to catastrophize. And in fact, it's actually, I don't want to sound like I'm saying little old Plymouth Argyle against big old Leeds. Obviously, we should try and win every game, and it's disappointing when we don't. But I think some kind of perspective is needed around that, as Dan said earlier.
Yeah, I think Ben and Dan have both offered their opinions on this, and I know you joked about it earlier about somebody else's comments. I think people can work out who is suggesting that we give Foster time. Social question from Andy Brown, who's asked, Fozzie's use of substitutes seems to leave it a little too late. Is he proactive enough, John?
Haven't really sort of done a close analysis of Foster's substitutions across all the games he's been here, and also I think that it's going to always be very difficult for him, I think, from that point of view, because he's coming in and replacing a manager who I think was absolutely elite at in-game management, be that substitutions, kind of shifting tactical emphasis. I think that was really where Schumacher excelled compared to other managers at the level. One of the areas in which he was really, really strong despite being a young manager. So I think Foster is kind of coming into a situation where he's going to be compared against that. And so far, he doesn't appear to have quite the same knack for changing a game off the bench. That being said, I actually think that the Hardy/Waine strategy yesterday worked quite well. And if we hadn't conceded that second goal when we did, I think that Hardy would have continued to get into the game, would have created some chances for him. And he did sort of snaffle that chance for himself, didn't he, at 2-0 down, where he managed to sort of take it out of Mellier's gloves and smack it into a defender from a very tight angle. So I actually think that was a pretty smart kind of substitution that was clearly part of the game plan. He does love to obviously substitute his wing backs. I think that's, I don't know if it's every game where the two wing backs have been withdrawn and replaced at the same time, but certainly a few in a row. And I wonder if that is, at risk of becoming predictable for opposition managers. That being said, I think, Sorinola, Sousa, Miller and Mumba, while not identical players by any means, obviously do have some kind of similar attributes and being asked to do a broadly similar role in the team. So I don't know if it's necessarily a huge tactical disadvantage that the managers know that change is coming. It really is just maybe more about fresh legs for us in a position where clearly he's demanding a lot of energy, a lot of running, a lot of up and down. Positions that really are kind of, I think, the linchpin of any system that relies on wing backs. And that certainly seems to be the case with this Foster side. Also, we've got availability issues, right? I mean, JB and Forshaw have been our first choice midfield. They were unavailable yesterday for reasons of being on loan from Leeds and being injured, respectively. So that sort of limits your midfield options in terms of substitutions you can make in that position. So yeah, I don't necessarily know that I feel he's too reactive or not proactive enough. I think it's quite early days. We're having to give him time, as we've all discussed. But yeah, and I think I would have to probably come back with a conclusion on that in a few weeks' time, more so than I can give you one now. Yeah, I think, as I said, the flip side, whereby Schumacher very noticeably was very, very good at affecting games, is probably not something we've seen from Foster so far. But, is it worth trading that for more resilience and kind of toughness to beat from the start of games? Again, quite a lot of the time when you notice impactful substitutions, it's because you started the game badly or you're chasing a game. And actually under Foster, that has been the case a few times, of course. But generally speaking, we've been in some quite good positions under him in the second half of games. So we'll see on that front. But yeah, I think it's way too early to suggest that he's sort of overly reactive in that department. Jury is out, I think, on that front.
Yeah, batting back to you then, Ben. Morgan has asked, based on recent improvement, what is the plan with Ben Waine? Barry Evans has said, are we seeing some improvement from Ben Waine? And Ben Waine for Ballon d'Or has asked, why is Ben Waine the greatest player of all time? There you go.
To answer the third question first, he seems like the most genuinely lovable person ever. He has a very open and eager to please smile and a lot of keenness and energy, which he tries to put on the pitch. Are we seeing improvement? Yes, we are seeing improvement for sure. I think I chanted his name as he left the pitch for the first time without any sort of feeling of hypocrisy yesterday. I thought he did well. But the question, it comes back to objectivity. Do we, what's his future? Does he have a role? Because, I think that was his best performance in the Championship, in my opinion, by quite a way. But then, if you put emphasis on strikers scoring goals, maybe the cameo at Leeds away, you'd say, because he got the goal. But I think there's more to football than putting the ball in the net, isn't there? So I think, we can say I was quite amazed how much he didn't fall over. That sounds sarcastic, but, he really showed strength he hasn't done at times to not just receive the ball, but there are times when it will just bounce off him like a brick wall because he's under pressure. He's not able to control the ball and bring it down or lay it off. I thought he did a really good job of that. There was much more guile to his press. I've been quite critical of his directness and the lack of nuance to his pressing game, not being able to fool the defenders or cause them problems, being quite obvious. But he seemed to do that pretty well yesterday. What I would say that is if Brian Hardy had put that performance in and then Ben Waine had come on, I would look at that and say Ryan Hardy sort of had a bit of an off day today, which wasn't to say that it wasn't a championship level performance, but that's the level that Ben Waine's competing with as the starting number 9. Which is to say, it was a good performance for Ben Waine. Was it the sort of performance that if he plays consistently, we can use that to progress in this league? I'm not so sure, but was suggested by the question, what it does show is definite progression, and Foster's definitely tweaked or worked on. He does have a particular set of skills. He's not Liam Neeson, as was commented in the last live when I made that comment. And Foster, I think, has visibly developed those so far. Already in the few weeks he's worked with him, he's put more. I don't want to use the word nuance again, but I'm struggling for another. He's less of a one-trick pony. He's certainly developed, added strings to the bow, arrows to the quiver, however you want to put it. He seems to be a more developed player, and if he continues to develop like that, then there's no reason why he doesn't have a future with Argyle. Whether he can and where his ceiling is the question. I've said that he needs to hit the target more. That, I think, if that can be improved, if that's something that can be coached, I don't know, but all the link-up play, etc., is great, but you need someone who, when they get into Hardy's position, can rifle it in the near post top corner or work the keeper. So that will be a crucial issue at some point in the future. But I mean, he definitely improved. That was definitely an improved performance in my mind to a lot of what we've seen recently. It was certainly a credible championship performance, but I wouldn't say it was an elite or even sort of top championship strikers performance. It certainly wasn't ridiculous. He didn't stand out as a sore thumb as not deserving to be on the pitch or being not up to the level. But like I say, if Hardy had put that performance in, I don't think any of us would be saying, wow, that was a great performance by Hardy. It would be quite the opposite. So it depends how you're evaluating him. You can only evaluate him, I suppose, against his own levels, and by that standard, I thought he was pretty good yesterday, and certainly gives confidence that Foster can keep developing him. It will all depend on where that development sort of slows and stops, whether he has a long-term future, and also, of course, whether Argyle stay in the Championship, or whether this season or next we end up a division lower or even a division higher.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, John, because obviously we were in Rome, my first trip to Rome yesterday, the brewery up near, where is it? Peveril. Is it in Peveril? Is Peveril a place?
After walking around in the rain in circles for a while. Yeah. Aaron actually plugged Rome, Italy into his Google Maps and was confused about the distance.
Yeah, it was when I got the Brittany ferry that I was starting to worry.
I said that's France, so you're doubly wrong there.
I mean, you can also go to Spain, but sure.
It's not Italy, is it?
No, but it's closer. Spain. It is closer. Anyway.
I mean, I'm amazed that you didn't find it, Aaron, given that all roads lead to Rome, but there we go.
You just said Spain is closer to Italy than France.
What a pointless tangent. Talking of points and pointlessness, Barry Evans, another question from Barry, says, is 52 points still the benchmark to keep us up? And Josh Pitcher says, when do we panic? I know that you were talking in Rome. You were worried that QPR had won at Bristol City. So are you starting to panic? When do you start to panic?
I thought you were going to wheel out Richard Osman then, for starters, when you were talking about pointlessness. He'd be a good My Argyle life, wouldn't he, Richard Osman? That's Aaron, for people not watching the stream, leaving the room, and is now so disgusted he turned his camera off. No, I'm certainly not panicking. I could have done with QPR losing yesterday, as I made very clear to my Bristol City supporting friend. I think, there's a large posse of clubs down at the bottom of the league now who look in real danger of sliding in. And while some of those might bring the more Schadenfreude, adjacent among us more joy than others, my personal view has always been that it would have been really, really good if that kind of clear bottom three for the entire season of Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday, QPR could have just, got back in their box and relegated themselves without much ado, because then we could be effectively on the beach by March, and that would be all very nice. Doesn't look like that's happening, unfortunately. QPR obviously winning yesterday to close the gap on us to 5 points, and we are, bar Birmingham, the best placed team in that kind of mini league at the bottom end of the table. So there are still a ton of clubs in between us and the relegation zone on a 5-point or fewer margin now, which is pretty real, I think, as opposed to, it would have been 8 to us if Bristol City had won yesterday. Should be noted, of course, that we have both a game in hand on QPR still, which is on Tuesday night against West Brom, and also a better goal difference, which, as Dan knows very well, is almost worth an extra point. At football cliches alerts there. Yeah, I'd have liked it if QPR had lost and Sheffield Wednesday had lost. Instead, they both won. And yeah, you look at the table now and those two results make a hell of a lot of difference, because you're looking at a bottom three that is still probably odds on to go, if those results have gone the other way, those two results, versus now a situation where it's wide open. And obviously, as we know, in situations which are wide open, things that, you might not have thought were going to happen can happen. Clubs who appear to be very safe can sleepwalk in. I think we all have painful first-hand experience of that from 2019. And while I am generally much more positive about Foster than some occasional contributors to this podcast who shall not be named, who like to stand up in their bedroom and have their computer screen tilted towards the ceiling for Lionel Richie-related social media content purposes, we have as Dan said, we have the lowest budget in the league, potentially bar Rotherham, who are definitely going to go down. All those other clubs around us have better players who are, for one reason or another, not performing, but who have a higher ceiling than our players do on the whole. And a lot of them also have the opportunity to sack their manager and bring someone else in. Now, if things start to go to pot in a really serious way. Now, most of them, I think, have already done that this season, so it would be a two-manager season. A two-sacking season, a three-manager season if they were to. But, we've all seen that a new manager boost can be worth that payout, that compensation, if it keeps you in the league. And there are managers out there who are, survival specialists. Obviously, one of them, thankfully, has got to take a job up in Scotland, so is not available for Stoke or anyone like that to make a late phone call to at this stage. But it's not. This is not really a poor reflection on us as much as just saying that it's brutal down there, and we are absolutely not safe. And I was saying that when we were 8 points in a game in hand clear after Wednesday night. And I'm saying it certainly now when we're only 5 points clear. And I really don't want this to be seen as a kind of doomsaying, really negative take or anything. It's really just based on what Dan said. Again, that we are punching well above our weight at this level. And at times, gravity can very unfairly catch up with you. In terms of points, yeah, I think 52 points probably would be enough. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. It would also just be our luck after what happened last season to be embroiled in a ridiculously overly competitive kind of above average relegation scrap, where the points total required to stay up is very high. But I think 52 will probably be enough. I think in all likelihood, probably a pointed game. It's tough to say, isn't it, at this moment? Might just be enough, maybe a little bit more. I'm confident that if we continue to go at the current rate of points accumulation, that we will be fine. And obviously we're in a, as Ben mentioned earlier, a difficult run of fixtures. So I'm not panicking, and I don't think I like to think I won't panic unless we are, going into the last month of the season 4 points adrift or something, which I don't think will happen if I was to predict it. I do also think, though, that, we've got our game in hand will disappear after Tuesday night, and that is a very, very difficult one against a West Brom side who are 5th. And then we have to go to Middlesbrough, who on paper look like a team that we could maybe even catch in the league, but in practice are, I think, significantly better than us, certainly in terms of the playing talent at their disposal, and it's a long way, and we've had a charged fixture schedule. So I could see a situation where we lose the next 2, and even if it's not, a sign of the sky is falling in, our performance has been terrible, and just kind of the expected nature of things in this league, if results elsewhere don't go our way, you could be 2 points off relegation by the end of play at the Riverside on Saturday, which certainly I think would send more nervous members of this podcast team who are not on air at the moment into something approaching some kind of full-scale meltdown. So hopefully we can pull out a result or two in the next couple of games against the odds. We can go into those games then against Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich first, but then Sheffield Wednesday and Blackburn not really needing to get points. It'd be really nice to be able to go into those games with feeling a bit more relaxed. But staying up was never going to be easy, I don't think. And I think anyone who thought that 8 points was done and dusted and we were safe probably is now looking over their shoulder a little bit more and just noticing how quickly things can change in this league. So I think it's not a cause for panic, and I don't think the players should be panicking or the staff should be panicking, and I'm sure they're not. But the way these fixtures are falling for us at the moment, and unfortunately, that little spurt of good results for Sheffield Wednesday and QPR could mean that there's some squeaky bum time, and not just in Aaron's gulping bedroom before the month is out.
Nice. I've got loads of questions to get through, but I think we'll skip them. Most of them. Dan, that's your name, Dan. I'll come back to you. Quite a few questions about Hazard. Doesn't need to be an overly long answer. Basically, a lot of it is. Woolwell Green says, "Is it time to give Burton a chance in goal? Hazard has made some crucial saves, but he doesn't command his box at all and is costing us too many points." And Adam, I'm just going to call you Adam. I'm not going to pronounce your Irish last name, to be honest. What does Callum Burton have to do to get a chance, despite his wiki saying that he signed for Stoke in January? Are we being too harsh on Hazard as a fan base? I don't think he's done too badly. I mean, he could have done better with both of those goals against Leeds, but like we've already discussed, let's be real, we weren't really going to pick up those 3 points anyway.
Okay, to answer your first question, is it time to give Burton a chance? No. He is a capable League One keeper who came in last season and got us over the line and did a good job. Hazard is, despite his flaws, which are exemplified by the quality of the Championship, where he doesn't command his area as well as would be as well as ideal. He doesn't look confident, which I think makes a lot of fans nervous. It was exacerbated in the whole Matt Macey, Kyle Leatheran debate of the fact that Macey looked like a bag of nerves and Leatheran looked confident, which made people think that there was a vast difference between the two. Whereas the stats showed that Leatheran was very marginally better, but not any more than that. I think the other thing with Hazard is it's the knowledge that we've got a better keeper waiting in the wings. It's the same thing back 10 years ago when McCormick got injured and we had Jake Cole come in, very capable League Two goalkeeper. But it was the fact that people inevitably were comparing him to McCormick every week. He wasn't as good, not by miles, but he just, is a reasonable gap between them. And therefore, he got a lot of stick for, through the, I guess, the frustration that, we have a better keeper on our books. But we can't obviously play him due to injury. So I think that is a factor at play here with Hazard. He doesn't look massively confident and therefore people aren't, doesn't inspire confidence in the fans. I think people are a bit nervous when the ball comes back to him and he's trying to play out from the back as he's being told to. Some dodgy kicking is in with that as well, and the second goal yesterday is a poor bit of goalkeeping. No other way of saying it. He should save it, as I think it was John said. It's a good kind of firm strike, but close your legs, mate. He should save that. It's Aaron chuckling there as I realise I just said close your legs, mate. Edit. I think that he is doing a decent job as our number two goalkeeper. He's made a lot of good saves this season. I think it's important to remember that. There have been times where people have perhaps been saying, does Cooper even get back in? I'll admit I've had a few kind of thoughts about that when Hazard was on a really good run of form. The last couple of games that has kind of dropped off again a little bit, but he's not a bad goalkeeper at all. It's just, yeah, his few flaws, which leads to a lack of confidence in him in the fan base, and then the fact that we've got Cooper waiting in the wings means that I think he's getting a bit of a rough ride from our fans, which is a shame because, like I say, I don't think he's a bad keeper.
I think what really big contributor as well is the inconsistency. If he'd been a level sort of ability and performance, I think this wouldn't be a conversation. It would be a case of, yeah, he's a pretty decent keeper, and we've got Cooper to come back when he's fit. But he sort of improved and then regressed and has then improved again, and seemingly, I know it was Leeds, but on the basis of that, started to regress again. And I think that becomes a concern for the fan base because you don't know what you're getting, and people like consistency, don't we? We like to know what we're getting, even if it's just a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 every week. So I think that highlights it perhaps more. He'll have games where the distribution's good, he commands his box, he comes in the air, he does all the things that we've been asking of him, and then like yesterday, a lot of those things weren't present, and it can become frustrating, and it can put it present in the mind of the fans. Whereas his top level has been absolutely incredible this season. It would be good if he could maybe find the middle ground and keep it. That would make the fans happier, and I think maybe even give him confidence to keep, if he could keep a consistent level going. I think that would give him a bit of a boost as well.
It's kind of ironic that the one Argyle goalkeeper that he reminds me of most of during my time as a fan, tall, left-footed, capable of pulling off worldy saves, but also prone to the occasional gaff, kicking a little bit dodgy, Mr. Romain Larrieux, and was like one of the most popular goalkeepers in Argyle history. It would seem. It's just a bit of a shame that he seems to be getting a bit of stick from our fan base. I mean, and on the wider point, it's a real frustration, I think, that people are kind of laying in on players that don't really deserve it. I will admit that I have opinions on some of the players in the squad and whether they're up to it at championship level, and it just seems frustrating that people seem to go too far on some players, which are obviously trying their hardest, which is important, but also are actually, I think, decent players at this level. So it just comes back to that perspective thing, really, that I think people need to just lay off him a little bit.
Nice. Jack Leslie asks, are there any plans for Sam Down merch? I mean, I can answer that one. There's something in the offing. Watch this space. I mean, the people on this pod don't know what that is either. So it's news to everyone.
Is it going to be like Bielsa blue buckets, but like they don't exist? You can buy like £5 gets you a non-existent Sam Down chair.
I mean, we could do that if people want to spend £5 on an imaginary chair.
No. It's a Sam Down non-existent chair. It would be silly to pay £5 for a non-existent chair. That would be silly.
Yeah. Okay. One of those. I'm sure we can do that. Not specifically Sam Down merch, but there is something in the offing. When that is confirmed and the paperwork is signed, we'll let you know. Ref watch. Is there much need? Or, I mean, we are over an hour in.
Inconsistent, but got most of the big stuff right. Yeah.
Ben did it really earlier on.
Yeah, there's one thing I would like to raise on Ref Watch though, because I've seen a lot of comments about that goal kick which wasn't given, or the lino Mayflower side line, and it was in the kind of Barn Park Lyndhurst corner where we were attacking, and the ball clearly went out of play. No, they were attacking. The ball clearly went out of play, and the lino seemed to kind of not realise that it had gone out, and then the referee gave a goal kick, and it all seemed a bit of a mess. The only thing I can think on that is that the lino, being over the other side, knew that the ball had gone out, but wasn't sure who the last touch came off, so communicated it to the ref and said, look, it's gone out, but I don't know who, can you confirm, and then give goal kick or corner. So then the referee made the signal, because otherwise, yeah, it seemed like a kind of weird one in terms of, why would the lino not signal? And the lino and ref got some stick from our fans. The slightly amusing one was when the popular chant about the referee not being very good came out because he wouldn't let Ashley Phillips back on the pitch. Guys, learn the 30-second rule. Yeah, that was a little bit cringeworthy, but yeah, I've seen him get a lot of stick online. I don't think he was brilliant, like some inconsistency and just a little bit of kind of Leeds players hitting the deck, and he seemed quite quick to blow his whistle. But I don't think he was that bad, to be honest.
There was one challenge I'd love to see back. It was on Whittaker in the box. It looked like he might have got the ball, might have got a bit of Whittaker, but there was a given as a goal kick. I need to go back and view the. It was either a penalty or a corner, because if he'd kicked Whittaker into the ball, it was a penalty. If he kicked the ball, it was a corner, and it got given as a goal kick, and I couldn't quite work out what that was. But I mean, I might go back and watch the full highlights of the second half and realise that I'm completely making stuff up, and I was just sort of kind of emotional in the Devonport at the time. But yeah, there was some weird decision making, but I don't think it really altered the course of the game.
Is that the name of your first album? Emotional in the Devonport. It'd be a good one.
I've got a competition for emotion in the Devonport, haven't I? There's already
well, no competition, I'm afraid to say, from your point of view. I thought the refereeing was fine. I wasn't on after the Coventry game, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to quickly say that I thought the Lino on the Lyndhurst side against Coventry is comfortably the worst official I've seen all season. And compared to that, the officiating teams, did a very good job yesterday.
So I didn't expect. Normally, when you say quickly, John, it's normally still a good 20 minutes. Anyway,
I can carry on.
No, it's all right. Anybody got anything to add on Leeds before we do a really quick West Brom preview?
I'll quickly say it's not so much on Leeds, but we are 5 points off the drop, but we benefit from having so many teams beneath us who, apart from this Saturday coming, I think there's constantly taking points off each other in the run-in, and that's going to be very useful. So I do think that 50 points will be more than enough. And there are teams like Cardiff and Millwall who are on horrendous runs. I know Cardiff are above us, but that it's not going to be as simple as the points we are above the drop because of having so many teams between us. There's going to be a lot more, again, I'll use my favourite buzzword, there'll be a lot more nuance in the run-in and who's going down. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's not as simple as us needing to win out the games that we've got. It will depend on everyone around us too.
But you don't want to rely on that too much is the only issue, because when the musical chairs stop, you can find yourself, falling the wrong side of a dotted line that you've very rarely been the wrong side of just because some of the results go against you. And I think aspiring to keep a point distance, is more important than
absolutely
having a buffer of teams. I would take a 15-point differential on us being 21st currently over 5 points with all those teams in between. But obviously, you would prefer 15 points with all the other teams in between, and that's an opportunity that we have, right, to get that kind of distance. So,
just trying to point out that not all of the teams below us can get maximum points themselves because they're going to be taking points off each other quite a lot.
Tuesday night under the lights, West Brom at home. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, indeed. The third of three very tough home games. Sixth, third, and fifth. That's tricky, and as frustrating as it would be to not win any of those three home games. And I know you generally say, that's unacceptable or whatever to not win any of those three. I'd absolutely take a point, and I think that'd be a very good result. 2 points from those three home games doesn't sound great on paper, but I think that'd be absolutely fine. But it's gonna be tough. I mean, that said, didn't think West Brom were great on Friday night against Southampton at all. So that's, I guess, a little bit of encouragement for us. But yeah, it's another team with a lot of quality. But as I said earlier, it's the fact that we have given a good game against basically everyone in this league apart from those top three means that I think we've got a good chance. Obviously, Darko JB will be able to come back in. You would assume Ryan Hardy would start again. Whether Adam Forshaw will be fit or not, I'm not sure, but hopefully he can kind of come back in and give us some more options in centre mid. But that said, Adam Randall I thought was very good against Leeds. So, if we go Randall and JB, I'll be very happy with that. Be interesting to see about the wing-back selection. Sorinola also had a very good game, I thought, against Leeds, but looked absolutely shattered. Whether he had a knock or something, I'm not sure. It looked like he really had run himself into the ground on Saturday. So, it'll be interesting to see if he starts or whether Mumba comes back in. We've got some options, and I think, as I mentioned on an earlier pod, it's kind of encouraging that I think we've got a little bit more strength in depth. We can rotate in a number of players.
You're not allowed to say that.
Yes, I know others have opinions about how our depth is terrible, and they are very much entitled to those opinions, even if they're wrong. I think it's good that, we're not just looking at it and thinking, well, we've got the same kind of 14 players here that we need to run into the ground. We have got various people we can bring in who will do a good job, I'm sure. So, looking forward to it. It's great to kind of get the fans right, get the fans in, get a home puck packed for the third time in under a week. Good for the club's coffers, obviously, and it should be a good game. Hopefully the weather's better. It seems like all the last kind of 5 or 6 home games, the weather's just been terrible. It'd be nice to just have a nice calm evening where you can actually see the pitch and it's not chucking down with rain. Although, as they say at Football Cliches, that's a great leveler, isn't it? So maybe that'll do us some good.
I wish I could share your optimism, Dan, but our inexcusable failure to sign a 15-goal-a-season proven championship striker in the January transfer window, which could only be attributed to poor management at the level of the club, definitely not the fact that every club was trying to sign one of those, to the point where the side who are 4th in the league signed a player from League Two for £1 million. I think that's an inexcusable lack of depth, and that it's just very hard to be as forgiving as you are of that kind of oversight.
Again, I think that satire is aimed at somebody that isn't on this current pod, just to give everybody a level.
It's actually aimed at quite a number of our fellow contributors seem to have that opinion, to be fair to the person who is usually the butt of that take.
Fair enough. As I was saying, I had the pleasure, if you want to call it that, of experiencing the Mayflower Lower for the first time against Leeds, and could not read the game at all. I don't know how people sit there and understand depth. It's just all gone. I feel sorry for people that have to sit in the bottom row, or the front row, as it might be called. Very wet, very windy. Not as wet as it was against Coventry, fair enough, but still, if you're getting up and leaving before the full-time whistle, I do not blame you at all, because not the best game of my life, to be honest. Anyway, where was I going with that? Ben, anything to add?
West Brom, I think I'm right in saying, other than Leeds and Leicester, have conceded the fewest goals. If there are mistakes, again, individual errors, they're going to cost us. If there's some West Brom ones, would be nice if we could take advantage of them, but I do think it's going to be a game of small margins. You just hope that we can put out a team that isn't, the injuries, the knocks, etc., the toil against Leeds. We can put out a team that the manager actually wants to put out and execute the game plan. It's bizarre that we're sort of talking about wanting to get 3 points against West Brom. West Brom are a boing. They're a yo-yo team potentially that now with the new ownership are probably going to resume that model. They're a massive team, and the fact that we should have won, or felt like we should have won, against one of last year's playoff teams a couple of games ago. It is pinch yourself stuff, and we need to we need to remember, as John said, that these are massive games. We could really do with the 3 points. I think if results go against us on the night and on the weekend to follow, there could be a lot of squeaky bums, as has been said. And if we get the 3 points and results go our way on the weekend, all of a sudden, there can be quite a rosy outlook amongst the fan base. So it could be quite a pivotal game, if not in terms of the real outcome of the season, in terms of how comfortably we're all sitting. So it's going to be one of those games, I think, that we feel is a pivotal one. Sort of, we talk about Randall's last last minute winner, and sort of like the atmosphere, the febrile atmosphere that was going on at the time. I think it might be one of those evenings. If it's a close run thing, which I'm expecting to be, it could be a real hot atmosphere inside Home Park, which sadly we don't see quite so often these days. But that was a night game, wasn't it? So I feel like it could be quite an important game, certainly from the fan base point of view, for this section of the season. And if we can come out of this run of 3 games with 4 points instead of 1 or 2, that has to be seen as a positive from this run of fixtures.
John, you have a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge of people that you dislike in the Championship. Who are West Brom's key threats? Who are their key men?
Well, I think their key man is the manager, who I actually do not dislike at all. I think he's very, very good and is their biggest asset by a considerable distance, which is Carlos Corberan, who performed the unbelievable task of taking Huddersfield to the playoff, within a whisker of the Premier League 2 seasons ago, I think, right? The season before last. I mean, people feel like that's kind of lost in the mist of time, given that Huddersfield have been so absolutely terrible since he left. But that was an astonishing achievement. And obviously coming in at West Brom last year when they were very unsettled, made them into a team that really looked like it was going to get in the playoffs, but tailed off. This season has been somewhat similar, except they're now kind of pretty well ensconced in 5th place, albeit, it's a fast-moving picture up there, and a few results can change things, as we know. But he has them, I think, really tactically brilliantly organised. As has been mentioned, they're a very good side defensively, very hard to break down. And I think they're probably one of the few Championship sides who I would say really significantly outperforming the quality of their squad, which for me, I mean, they've obviously got some great players, and every club at this level, apart from like Rotherham and us, we have some great players, it turns out. But they've got some big names, certainly. And players who cost them a lot of money or who have gone for a lot of money in the past. So it's a good squad, but I also think there are better squads below them in the league. And so for them to be, as I mentioned, ensconced in 5th place is really, I think, a very good achievement. One that reflects very well on Corberan. I do think that means, though, that it's going to be a very different type of game to the Leeds game, and a lesser extent the Coventry game. I really hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but I think it's probably less of an affair where it's going to be watching out for players who can hurt you at kind of any moment just with a click of a finger. I mean, want to be clear that every single team at this level has players like that, but not so much as Leeds, right? West Brom do not have a £40 million striker, an Italian full international, and arguably the best player in the league in Crescencio Somerville, waiting to kind of pounce on any mistake. I think it'll be a much more rigid, as Ben said, tight margins kind of game. So, and I think that maybe kind of favours us. I think if we can kind of get a foothold in the game, be a bit less afraid about making one mistake that's going to be just thrown in our face, and just kind of try and dictate the tempo, build play. I think we absolutely can get something, but because it's a game of fine margins, as Ben said, obviously that could go the other way and we could end up losing 1-0, 2-1, whatever. I'd be very surprised if we suffer a heavier defeat than 1 goal. Obviously notwithstanding if we put in a kind of Bristol City type performance or do a weird team selection or whatever. But I think it will be a tight game, and that of course means you can come out either side of it based on, as Ben said, very, very fine marginal things going one way or another. But I do think it's a game where we shouldn't be afraid of the opposition, a game where I think we've got a chance to do something, particularly at home. I was at the game at the Hawthorns, which was before they kind of went on a really barnstorming run. So, maybe they weren't quite as good a side as they are now in terms of having it figured out tactically. But that finished 0-0 and was a very tight game. But I felt probably one where we were the better side. We hit the post. Kessler Hayden, who remembers, should have scored with a shot that I think was blocked. That was a really positive performance, I thought. And I think, if we can kind of replicate that type of performance, but have the home crowd at our backs, we definitely could get a positive result. I think if we do lose, it won't be the end of the world because they are 5th, and that just is the more likely outcome, I guess, based on that fact. I also think that the point was made earlier in the season, wasn't it, when we had that monstrously good home record, but also a terrible away record, that part of that might be attributable to the fact that we have played comparatively poor teams at home compared to having to go to all of the teams right at the top end of the league. This is now another example, the third in a week of having those sorts of teams who are up in the playoff picture now come down to us with more regularity. So you might find some kind of swings and roundabouts. I certainly don't think a loss is a reason to kind of throw in the bin the idea that we're a good team at home or a good team, full stop. But yeah, as Ben mentioned, it would be really nice to get something so that we can just put that little bit more distance between ourselves and the bottom three. And I think we're certainly in with the chance of doing it. I think it will definitely be a game of fine margins, as Ben said.
Before we do score predictions, do you want to do a little quiz? We rarely do transfer business with West Brom, but if you can name me any of the last 7 transfers, according to Transfermarkt, between West Brom and Plymouth Argyle, I'll be very surprised, apart from the obvious. So you can shout out the obvious one first.
Is what, Alex Palmer on loan?
Yeah, there you go. There's one.
Right.
If you get any of the other 6, I'll be very impressed.
How far back are we talking here?
Well, the 7th most recent transfer is in 1957. So that's how little business we do with West Brom.
Did we sign someone in the 80s from them called Stuart Evans, was it?
We may have, but it's not on this website. I'm gonna check.
Let me Wikipedia that. Have I?
Jermaine Easter.
No.
He made his debut against West Brom. I remember that, but we did sign Stuart Evans from West Brom. There we go. That is
according to Wikipedia. We did, unless he was released by West Brom and then we signed him.
Well, maybe.
That's very good remembering from you.
That played for us before I was even born. But
I'm gonna be honest. I'll put you out your misery because there's no chance you're gonna get these.
What are the more recent years?
2018-19 season, 2011-12 season. That was 19-20. 2011-12, 2001-2002. Yeah,
it must have been a low league, surely.
You will not get this.
So it's a shame Sam is here. I think he definitely would get it.
But
I feel confident I might be.
No, he wouldn't. This is transfers between the clubs, by the way.
Darren Purse.
No. Jarvis Cleal, Danny Barrow, Chris Adamson, and Andy Conwyn. See? You wouldn't get those.
No, how do we not get those? Good audition for Aaron for the second tier job if Dilks gets sacked and that becomes available.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk of an Argyle Life mastermind. That might be a question that I put to Sam Down. And again, he wouldn't get them.
He would.
He would now, wouldn't he?
No, you think he listens to this? No. Go on, Ben. Score prediction.
Oh, score prediction. My head says draw, but my heart says win. Which do I listen to? I'm going to say 2-1 Argyle. No, I'm going to say 1-0 Argyle. 1-0 to the Argyle.
Dan?
Yeah, I think we'll get a draw. I'll go for 1-1.
Am I allowed to also have 1-0 to the Argyle? Because that was going to be mine. If not, I'll say 2-1.
Yeah, you can have what you want. I'm going to say 0-0. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Nice little 0-0. That'd be a lovely little thing to talk about in midweek. Nice little 0-0 draw with West Brom. I'm sure that'll go down well.
I'm sure that will not cause any loss of perspective whatsoever if it's a 0-0 draw in terms of people online who think that we're boring under Foster.
No, exactly. So it works. Plays to that narrative. I think we'll call that a night. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Boring, Argyle.
Yeah. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Find us on your podcast platforms on Spotify and Apple and Google Play. We're obviously on YouTube if you're watching along. If you're not, go and watch along. I made it a bit late to ask you to do that now. And find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Cheers. Bye.